People say they could be doctors or firefighters with no training thanks to TV. Many say they have already saved a life, solved a crime, or successfully defended themselves in court based purely on TV knowledge. A third of people say they could successfully give someone CPR because they've seen it done on TV shows. And almost 3.5 million even believe they have what it takes to become a doctor or firefighter with no other training other than watching their favorite series. The research was conducted by Sky to coincide with a 3-part hashtag on a Chicago crossover event set to air on Friday, July 11 on Sky and Now. It found that a quarter were inspired by TV to go into their current field of work, and an estimated 1.35 million people quit their job to go into a different field after learning about it on TV. Traditional roles still fill the top spots of the careers people would consider going into after seeing them on TV, with teacher, lawyer, and doctor amongst the top jobs. Men are even confident in their physical strength and abilities, with 1 in 10 convinced that they could have a career in the armed forces tomorrow, purely based on their current level of expertise, having watched people in the armed forces on TV or film. 15% are confident they could become a successful teacher tomorrow, with no other experience other than seeing the job carried out on the screen. And some people even think they could become a doctor, nurse, or firefighter. 29% of Brits believe they could stop someone from bleeding out, and 12% say they could fight a fire. 16% say they have actually been able to save someone's life using skills learned on TV, and a further 15% say watching TV has helped them diagnose an illness for themselves or someone else. 1 in 10 men say they've been able to solve a crime, and 6% say they have even been able to successfully defend themselves in court thanks to TV. Viewers will follow the 3 teams as a gas explosion rocks a high-rise, and Chicago's first responders come out in force to rescue hundreds of civilians. It is the calamity beneath the surface, however, that sends our heroes on a race to save 40 people trapped deep underground, including 2 of their own. In a world powered by streaming platforms, YouTube hacks, and endless TikTok reels, it's never been easier to feel like an expert. At least that's what a new generation of overconfident armchair professionals believe. Meet Kyle. 28 years old, lives in his parents' basement, and works part-time at a vape shop. Kyle's never taken a biology class beyond high school, but after watching 7 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, he's convinced he could perform an emergency appendectomy if the situation ever called for it. I mean, how hard could it be? Kyle shrugs, sipping a sugar-free energy drink. Cut in, remove the bad part, sew it back up. I've seen Dr. Karev do it 100 times. It's a sentiment more common than you'd think. In fact, a recent, fictional but deeply plausible, survey by the Institute of Grossly Misguided Confidence, IGMC, found that 38% of Americans believe they could deliver a baby, treat a gunshot wound, or put out a fire with little to no formal training, if they had a good enough playlist or followed the right influencer. Scroll through TikTok and you'll find people role-playing emergency room trauma teams in their living rooms with nothing but a houseplant, a ring light, and a Spotify subscription to intense dramatic medical playlist. Hashtags like #FakeADoctorVibes and #DIYHero are trending, with creators giving tutorials on how to make a tourniquet from shoelaces or break down the anatomy of a firefighting hose using a garden sprinkler. Chicago Fire every Thursday for 6 years, boasts Jessica, a dental hygienist who once used an air freshener can to douse a kitchen blaze. I know how to navigate smoke-filled hallways and dramatically remove children from danger. It's all about staying calm and keeping your jaw clenched like Severide. To be fair, Jessica did put out a small grease fire in her toaster oven. But does that qualify her to enter a 4-alarm apartment complex inferno with a thermal imaging camera and a fire axe? She says yes. The fire marshal says no. Some blame this strange phenomenon on the main character effect, a psychological term, or maybe just a fancy phrase invented by Twitter, that explains why people believe they are destined for greatness without the need for training or experience. Others chalk it up to an overdose of streaming dramas where everyone either saves a life or dies trying, preferably in a slow-motion montage with indie rock playing in the background. "I'm not saying I could do heart surgery on a plane," said Ethan, a college dropout with a YouTube channel called Real Talk. "I'm basically a doctor. But if someone handed me a scalpel and a can-do attitude, I think I could keep someone alive long enough for the professionals to show up. I mean, I've seen House pull off crazier stuff with a cane and sarcasm." Unfortunately, this brand of misguided bravery has real-world consequences. Emergency rooms have reported upticks in patients who try to DIY their medical problems based on online advice. One man attempted to remove his own ingrown toenail using a butter knife and a YouTube tutorial titled "Foot Surgery for Bras." Spoiler, it did not go well. Similarly, volunteer fire departments have seen an increase in civilian helpers showing up at brush fires with garden hoses and TikTok live streams. They show up in Crocs, holding GoPros, yelling, "I got this." Sighed one veteran firefighter in rural Arizona. One guy tried to rescue a cat from a tree with a pool noodle and a folding chair. The cat is still up there. So is the guy, kind of. Experts say the trend isn't entirely without upside. The newfound interest in emergency professions has sparked a surge in applications to EMT programs and firefighter academies, though many applicants drop out when they realize it involves more than watching reruns and shouting "clear," while pretending to shock someone with a remote control. Still, there's a weird sort of optimism buried beneath the delusion. When people believe they can make a difference, even if it's based on fiction, that's powerful, said Dr. Felicia Rowe, a psychologist who studies pop culture's influence on identity. The key is channeling that passion into real training, real knowledge, and real humility. Watching ER doesn't make you a doctor, but it might make you want to become one. Some are doing just that. Maya, a former barista and self-professed Grey's Anatomy fangirl, was inspired by this show to pursue a degree in nursing. "I used to daydream about performing CPR while Dramy looked on proudly," she laughed. "But once I started school, I realized how much I didn't know. Now I want to save lives for real, not just in my head." As for Kyle, he since reconsidered his surgical ambitions after fainting during a first aid class when the instructor showed a photo of an actual incision. "Turns out, blood is way different in real life than on TV," he admitted. "Also, scalpels are sharp. Like, sharper than I thought." But that hasn't stopped him from launching a new TikTok series called Doctor Reacts to Real Surgeries, in which he makes grossed-out faces while watching actual medical procedures, occasionally pausing to say things like, "Nah, I wouldn't have done it that way." Confidence, it seems, is hard to kill. So the next time your neighbor insists he could handle a 5-alarm fire, perform a tracheotomy with a pen, or deliver twins in a moving car, all because he once watched The Good Doctor on a long flight, just smile.